back home and go to bed?
You're good.
No, I'm getting here's cuts.
Are you sure you're not?
All right, good morning, folks. Just want to thank Kevin for being here this morning to make sure that we could get the sessions recorded, and as we always do, we'll put it on YouTube, so just be advised with that. And before we get started, I just want to thank all the council members and also our department heads for, this is, I think, the 5th year that we've done this style, which is a very productive method. We have made accommodations for the public to participate by attending as well, even though we're experiencing the global pandemic. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to Patrick, and then we're going to jump right into highway. So.
Correct. Okay, I just want to go over a few things that you're going to see throughout the budgets. So salary increases, everybody knows that both the union and non-union agreed to 0% increases for 2021. The only increases you may see are because of longevity or step changes, so just so you're aware of that. Health insurance, we budgeted 7% for non-union employees. Right now, the worst scenario is a 3% increase for non-union. For the Teamsters is a 3.6% increase, so those are good increases. Normally they're in the double digits, so just to give you an idea on that. We may go back and adjust the budget if our rates come in lower than what we expect. So, retirement's up slightly just because the rates change, so you're going to see an increase there. Our insurance, workman's comp, I increased 5% from last year. Just we never know what those are going to be, but that seems to be the average of what they go up. For 2021, we're continuing the same theme as we have for 2020. Limited conference travel, if none at all. It seems like a lot of people are going to online, so you're going to see some reductions in the conference line items just because of that fact. Limited equipment purchases, we're really just keeping to it. If it's really deemed essential, then we'll go ahead with that purchase. Sales tax revenue, we did go conservative on what the county used and reduced it by 20%. And that is split between the highway and general funds only. So you're going to see a reduction in that. And what that has done is we are anticipating we may have to use some of our fund balance if the money doesn't come in as expected, or if it comes in higher, so or less. I think that's it for all the just kind of normal changes. We are under the tax cap again by about $271,000. So.
Just in general, I noticed throughout the computer services were changed. There was
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Tom. So I took the computer services out of each department and just put it into 1610, our shared services one, just more as a way to more efficiently put those into the system, because whenever you have one bill, you have to split it out amongst all those departments. So it really takes a long time to do, so I'm trying to streamline that process. So that is the thought behind that.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to check with it.
No, I'm glad, I meant to put that on my list here. I'm glad you brought that up, Tom. And that's all I have. So we're going into highway. Greg is filling in for Tim today. So the same thing as what we just talked about here is, we try to limit the expenditures on equipment. The salaries all pretty much stayed the same. We did increase the equipment repair line by $10,000 just because we do have some equipment that's old and we need to fix that. So, and we did increase the salt one just because we don't know what that's going to be, so we always kind of just drag that up. We did reduce some of the prices just because try to get the budget more aligned to what we're actually spending. So, otherwise than that, there's no other really significant changes in the highway budget. I don't know if anybody has any questions here.
Yeah, revenues seem to be down approximately $700,000 from 2019. I say approximately, it's about 20%. Is that what we're figuring we lose in sales tax?
Are you looking at highway or total?
Highway 2021 revenues, tentative budget, page 1.
Yeah.
Is that where you are?
I have us down $300,000.
How much?
300,000?
You're looking at 2020, aren't you?
Adopted 2020 versus 2021 tentative.
Okay, and because we don't know what we're getting this year for sales tax, I compared it to 2019. You know, in terms of the actual amounts that we spent in 2019
Correct. I got you.
for total. So that we're expecting that's the loss in sales tax?
Some of it, yes. Some of it, also, we have chips we reduced by 20% because that's what we're being told by the state.
That's been communicated to us already about
Yes.
chips.
20% for all three.
Correct.
Winter recovery, chips.
Streamline recovery and paved New York.
We don't put anything in for paid New York or emergency or winter recovery just because that doesn't get voted on until the springtime, so we usually do a budget amendment to add that on too, so. So this is strictly just chips, so you'll see that same reduction in the chips expenditure on that. And just comparing to 2019, Tom, our real property tax is also down in the 2020 budget from 2019, so.
Yeah, that's concerning. Why that would be?
Well, because we've gotten rid of some debt and that reduced it, and then we also reduced our expenditures for this year.
Okay.
And you have to look at Consolidated Highway, they also got an extra 500, or extra $50,000 in 2019, so. Versus, you know, we're budgeting 120,000 this year, they got 200,000 in 2019.
So I feel that we have enough to make that budget, or we might have enough to make that budget based on our projections of 20% less in sales tax.
We do. It's not something we could continue for years, but we do have built up fund balance and in anticipation of something happening with the border closing or something, and we would take a hit on sales tax, so we have built up fund balance for that purpose. So,
Okay, so the fund balance will cover this.
correct,
We have a good fund balance.
we do.
Okay.
And again, if sales tax exceeds projections, we will reevaluate
Yeah.
and make appropriate assignments of funds that come in. We're really just trying to be extremely protective at the moment, given that there are many dynamics that are still kind of unknown. You know, there was lots of conversations months ago about, you know, oh, the border will just be closed for a little while. And then it was like every month, right, when it was coming up on the 30-day renewal, everybody kind of went, okay, well, it might be closed for 30 days, but it's probably gonna take at least 30 days for them to kind of get a plan together. And, well, now,
Close till next June now.
well, you know, there's a lot of different thoughts as to when, it certainly isn't gonna open by the end of the year. I mean, that's just the fact, so. And that's just one of the contributing factors.
So if we are fortunate and things happen the right way and we have more money, then Greg, you would prioritize what would be the best thing to add to?
What's been expressed by department heads is equipment.
Yeah, I was
Which I totally
looking
agree
at how
with.
much
We
we're
don't
not
wanna
getting in equipment.
We don't wanna get a situation where we have to buy
Right.
5 trucks all at once,
Mhm.
because then you have to replace 5 trucks all at once. We're on a plan to try to replace trucks every year, so that way, when you have to replace them, we're not getting. This is an off year for plow truck also. Normally we do every other year on.
Right, so that would be
This is the off year.
2022 is the next one?
Correct.
So we just won't have the money to put aside half of it, perhaps, this year. We'll have to do the whole 400,000 or 420,000 in 2022.
How much?
Well, it usually costs 200,000 for,
Yeah, 200,
240,000 for a truck.
Yep.
We'll have to come up with that just in 2022.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions on highway?
Yeah, how are you gonna manage all this?
Yeah, all right. I'll make it work.
And I just wanna thank Tim and Greg too for, you know, they've been very responsive as it relates to the, you know, only essential spending. And I also would remind folks that the length of this experience, when this first started, they were plowing snow. I mean, it just, just to put it in perspective, that, you know, we've been dealing with this.
And we're coming back into
And
that.
we're coming back into that season, so, your guys, have hit it in stride, so thank you.
On another note, just so you guys are aware, salt has started, deliveries have started this past week, and they started putting salt up for the season.
Great.
I gotta go and push up.
We, we were able to purchase enough that we think we can get through this year.
Yeah,
Yes, they did.
we're in good shape.
Yeah.
We'll be, providing we don't get a significant ice storm, we'll probably be okay.
And Greg, to extend on what Michael said, even with paving, you know, when we had the reduction to 50% or whatever, in your group, it's just managing the staffing resources because, you know, you have to remain socially distanced. And when you have a team that's out on
It's tough.
doing construction work like that or highway-related work, it's not easy to keep things going the way they should to pave or whatever other tasks that you're doing, so,
So far, we've been lucky,
yes.
all around in general.
All right, next one we'll jump to is,
Oh, Nate.
Oh, I just wanted
Just-
to
oh, I'm
ask
sorry.
a question, not necessarily related to the budget, but I talked with Tim about just being mindful of salt reduction. You guys talk about that?
We have, I know we had that grant that was, kind of got canceled for alternatives as well. So hopefully in the future, we can go back down that path and seeing if there's some alternatives. Okay, we're still mixing the same as far as our salt and sand mix, we're still mixing the same just so we can maintain the roads in a safe manner. We try to reduce where we can. Certain areas, certain developments ask for less sand. We try to accommodate that, but we still need to maintain safe conditions.
I wondered about the storm drainage. Is that something that, I know, we had talked about that at some points in the past about, especially a need on the base. Is there any money to go forward in any of that?
I haven't looked at those figures.
we budget for that every year. Tom.
We do budget some.
I know, Tim was gonna work on a study this year, but with the whole COVID-19, I think that's got delayed till 2021.
Okay.
But we do have funds available in there.
I hate to keep postponing things,
No,
but this year we have to.
We started the process and we had some contractors come in and look at different means for the slip lining and some other stuff, but then that kind of got all changed when the COVID hit.
Okay, next one would be general, page 8, please, we're doing the highway superintendent's budget. I don't know if there's any questions on this one. Pretty small budget, so I'm not-
Storm drain.
No, that's in the, first line for highway superintendent, is that, in adopted 2020, is that a realistic figure?
That is.
And is that lessened if we have nothing for the buildings and grounds out of that?
Correct.
Correct.
So, I mean, the salary didn't go up to that automatically, right? 87?
No, it did. For 2020, it did.
Yeah, that was based on our assumption that with me working two departments, correct?
Correct.
All right,
And unfortunately, this deputy highway superintendent doesn't seem to get a raise at all, but we'll have to work on that sometime.
Nobody's getting raises this year.
No, I know.
All good.
next.
Good on that. And storm drain's the last one we have with Greg, and I don't know if there's any questions on that one. It's pretty basic.
Pretty basic.
You know, I sort of jumped the gun
What we've
on
done
that.
in the past, we just tried to keep the tax rate at $1 per thousand on that, and that's where that calculation comes in.
Frank, do you know how the roads are faring at the base in terms of the drainage and stuff? Are we still undercutting, some of the roads?
We're still working, keeping things going. I know they've cut across Connecticut. I'm not sure if they're gonna cut across New York as well. I know that project is going, seems like it's going pretty quickly. We did a few patches out on Idaho, Arizona this year, down in the back of the railroad tracks. It was starting to break up. We did some repairs out there with the roads. We still got some more to do, but
There were some that had to be closed.
they're all reopened.
They're all
We
reopened.
did the necessary repairs to get them open, so the developers in that new housing development could get in there and do what they needed to do. I was just out there last week, drove the roads, they seem like they're holding up for now.
So we have our pole barn and that's working okay? And we just need a salt shed, is that it?
You know, eventually, we'll do something with that.
Thanks, Greg.
That's fun a lot.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah, thanks for coming in,
Greg,
Greg.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Well,
Have a good rest of
appreciate it.
Saturday, Greg.
And I gotta go push up some salt.
Yes, I know, you said that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Just
He
about-
was like, that's it?
He goes, I think he's done.
What are we doing next?
Consolidated sewer.
Consolidated sewer.
Doing all the waters.
Okay, so
There he is.
no street lighting.
Oh, he didn't leave. Emergency.
You got your schedule there,
Consolidated
Tom?
sewer.
Did I get quite?
Tom? You got your schedule with you?
What's that?
So you can see
Oh, is
the
that
order
right?
from one? Yep,
Yeah.
yeah, that way you can see.
All right, good morning, Scott, first and
Good morning.
foremost.
Morning, Scott.
How we
Just
doing?
also want to thank you and your crew for managing and facilitating, the uncharted waters. Get it? Like that pun that we use.
A little early for that.
Yeah, not for me, I've been up since 5, we've got a lot of coffee here, so. But seriously, just want to thank you and your crew for everything, and also the admin team. I mean, you've been doing a great job with the technology stuff, and just kind of redoing, from the portal, so just thank you.
You're welcome. I'll do stuff.
All right.
Do you mind if I just jump in first, Scott?
Go right ahead.
Kind of do a quick summary here.
Yep.
So Scott and I spent a lot of time on this budget this year, a lot more time than I want to spend on it. It worked out that way. So we worked a lot in the revenue area, trying to adjust our revenues to match what we're bringing in, just because we have had rate increases. The ultimate goal, I think, is to have really the real property tax just pay for our debt service. So you will see some increases in some of the revenue codes because of that throughout each one of the districts. This year, we also had a bump up on premium obligations. What that is from our bonds and bands that we went out for this summer. So we converted $10 million of bands into bonds this year at an interest rate of 2%. But what the investor adjusters did, they also paid us more than our $10 million. They gave us an extra $200,000 called a premium on the obligation. So what we're using that money for is to offset our interest rates. It will cover interest rates for 2 years on our bonds. So we can't just take that money and use it for whatever we want. We have to use it for our debt service. So that's why you'll see that premium on obligation throughout all the water sewer districts. So that's what that is. So, and we are very fortunate to come in at 2% rate. We had budgeted 4% in the original capital project. So I think that rough calculation saves us about $2.5 million over the 20 years.
So the rates that we're going forward now will pay for it automatically. We've raised it high enough so that it would cover
Yes.
the interest in the bond?
When you say increase what?
Talking
Well,
about rates?
yeah, the interest and bond is usually covered by the real property tax. We have, and then our user rates, we're trying to have them cover our O&M, our operating and maintenance rates of the systems.
We're getting there.
Yeah, we're not there yet,
We're
but
gonna do
that's
it
the
all in
ultimate
one
goal.
swoop.
What Pat was really trying to capture, as we had said before, is we were really fortunate to structure ourselves, even during the pandemic, to go out for the Moody's rating, and then also be able to secure an interest rate at 2% versus the budgeted 4%. There was an automatic, in theory, spectrum of cost savings because we had budgeted it, or we were modeling it out at a 4%.
Yeah, and we got a really high bond rating, so.
Yeah, so, there was some good structure there, so. All right.
And our bands came in really cheap too on the interest rate, so.
Yeah. Forgive me if I keep asking questions like this. Sometimes I'm not hearing exactly where we're at and what we're doing
It's okay.
at this distance.
Okay.
That's why we're doing it.
That's why we're here, Tom.
Yeah.
So that's my,
That's your
you know, well, let me finish that up. So we follow the same, there's no raises in the water sewer departments either, just longevities and steps. And Scott's conferences, we did reduce it, but some of his has to be in-person training, so it doesn't reduce as much as some of the other ones, so just to make that clear.
But you've already struck on some things because they're doing some reduced pricing, and
Yeah.
so it's.
Yeah, we secured some continuous education units for the water and wastewater certifications here at the end of the year with our membership with Rural Water, and they had an offer for online training 20% off, so we kind of assigned a bunch of it. So it was
Strike money on top.
Yep.
Good time, so.
all right.
Okay, now I'm done.
All right.
Sure.
So, I'm gonna just speak, I guess, generally a little bit to, the overall budget, and then we can go in and see what kind of questions that you guys have. Like Pat said, a lot of effort this year in, going after funds to support the water and sewer capital project. We're kinda now pretty much, a couple of years into it, a lot of things in motion. Some of it kind of going well, some of it has been COVIDized, particularly the lift stations, so they continue to kind of move forward, but probably not at initially quite the rate that we hoped to. Most of those jobs should have been probably done by now, if it wasn't for COVID activities, so. But some of the other projects are moving forward, and some are also still in review. For example, the Make Courier well is still in review with Department of Health, and we'll continue to kind of follow up with them to make sure if they have any questions for us at the time, that we can deal with them at a time there. So all those things are moving forward. They're kind of incorporated in here just more so in the terms of the debt that we've taken on, but some of the debt is gone away, which Pat mentioned. So from that standpoint, it's actually a little bit easier to balance the budget, and historically we didn't maybe always have the right funds to pay for some of our debt and rates and things like that, and so this year it was fairly decent effort to balance the budget in terms of both capital project and the operational budget. Operational budget, we are trying to continue our shift to preventive maintenance, particularly in the tanks area, because we've now kind of gone through our rehabilitation phase, which we put on the capital improvement side, now that we're kind of in a maintenance mode, those will start to roll into a maintenance fee structure with Suez that we've already agreed upon, which is now being incorporated into the budget, which is a little bit shift from where we have acted in the past. I guess one comment I'll have on the capital improvement projects is that that does impact the base tax rates, particularly the county. But as we take on debt in the base districts, that does drive general capital gets charged to the county, so they start to get some tax rate assigned to them as a result of really borrowing funds to deal with the water and sewer infrastructure out in the base. So then, equipment-wise, ideally we would be going after some vehicles this year. The backhoe is fairly high on our list right now, kind of came onto the list probably looking at 2021. We have some funds in there, but right now we're planning to just kind of take it, as we go, and if funds are, come around and they're there, then, we would like to continue to keep investing in our equipment, because we still don't plan to get out of the water business anytime soon, so.
I can appreciate
I
that.
hope not.
So, and then this year we had planned to be a couple fleet vehicles was about it really this year, so not a huge implication, but as we, cascade those down into future years, they start to kind of back up from that standpoint. We continue to roll out software. Really, I think we're at a point now where we're getting to the online portal phase or kind of the customer interaction. So we're kind of excited about that. We actually just met on Thursday to discuss kind of rolling that all out, kind of starting with some smaller subsets. We do quarterly billing. They will kind of get emails sent out to them, the ones that we do have, and then others will start to come in as they inquire. So we're that will allow them to pay online, see their consumptions online, a lot more customer interaction with the software on the backside. And then once we do kind of start to collect some of this, I guess, e-correspondence methods with individuals and customers within the water and sewer districts, that we can now disseminate information also that way, because we do have notifications and things like that. Alongside, we've been doing outsourcing of our printing and billing activities, so that's gone well. That I think most customers have kind of perceived that, new setup with, the bill instead of the trifold that has gone over pretty well with our customers, so I think that's been a win. There's a lot of cost savings there also, just in terms of postage and envelopes and labor in the office.
That was a real win.
Yeah, no, it was a good win. We've had a couple little things in terms of how they're getting batched out of there, especially multiple, someone that may own multiple properties, they kind of get batched out in a lot, and sometimes they're getting separated in a couple things, and a lot of it seems to be on really how the mail sorts things has kind of been one of our few challenges that we've run into, but other than that, it's gone fairly smoothly. We continue with SCADA, making improvements there. It was pretty integral through COVID response with broken up teams and having the ability to look at things on your phone and computers and remotely access the system has been helpful and continue to be helpful as we move forward, so we continue to invest in those areas. Metering, we've had a lot of successes in really changing over to RF metering in the town. I think we probably are down to less than 200 meters in the actual town of Plattsburgh to replace. And we still aggressively go after those. And then we're kind of at a point where some of the ones that we had initially put in, whether they're batteries or various things or programming codes, there's all kinds of nuances that kind of come with technology too. But some of the better technologies evolved, as with everything, some of that stuff has changed. So we kind of keep up in the meter reading and the platforms and the interactions, it's all changing like every day now. It seems like where it used to change, technology would change every 5-6 years now, it's like every year the technology changes.
One of the real blessings, though, is the technology doesn't change as quickly as the iPhone, though. So,
So, are you saying that you just modify them, or you can update them?
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things is when we first started out, when we go into a house, a lot of times they would have, personal plumbing changes that would be needed, backflow device, check valve put in, galvanized, plumbing. That has all been kind of changed now. So now when we go in to kind of go back and change out heads and get accurate meters in there, it's really literally just swapping out the head of the meter, because all the infrastructure that's there is good now. because we've dealt with that on the first round. So even as we move forward, it'll become easier to make those swap outs.
Scott, with the e-correspondence for the water and sewer bills, are you gonna do that with the backflow test too, the annual backflow?
Yeah, we already are doing that with the backflow
Oh, are you?
test.
Okay, 'cause you've got quite
A lot of
bit.
that is, we're also doing that through the outsourced printing avenue. And as we get those into, we notify them via electronically too. A lot of them are still kind of in a paper format that we submit letters to them through the Peregrine, who's our outsourced printing source right now. But as we gain that information, and there's kind of only a handful of testers that are in the town, so we're kind of switching them over.
So there's only 200 left that don't have all the basic stuff
Correct.
done
Yep.
yet. And
Yeah,
then
in the
you-
town, we still got Binghamton and Scout Falls, and, you know, they're kind of, we support them. It's a little bit up to their budgets and driven by them to make those changes. We will change those and have been changing the ones that fail and need to be swapped out, but they've not been quite as proactive. So we're having discussions on switching over those districts, because eventually we want all the technologies to everywhere. But Scout Falls, when it went in as a result of the project, they got all radio reads initially. So, you know, some of this stuff has been done so Beekman has to be been caught up in from some places, so.
And now that we have almost the whole town finished, are you seeing any change in like the revenue or the way things?
Well, really, it's probably our time to go out and collect this information. Before, it would take us probably 2 weeks to collect metering information at the beginning of the month, and we collect that every month. Now it probably takes us 3 to 4 days. And then typically when you go out, you catch a big swath of data, and then you'll have to go out and find out where there might have been just glitches or skip, or, you know, maybe somebody had too much snow on this meter pit, or whatever it is. You kind of gotta go back out and kind of hunt down some of them. Those have become less frequent also, just because the ability has become more reliable to kind of pick up those signals remotely.
Is it not possible to see those glitches in real time, so you don't have to go back out?
It is, but some of it happens so fast that they can't tell. If you were to sit in the car when they're binging it, all you hear is ding, 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 and it kind of highlights them as they go down. And they'll try to do some when they're in the area, but some of it you don't know until it kind of loads up, and then there might be some high reads or some, you know, skips and things like that that you'll really know until it's in the program. So there's some that can be done in the field, but some of it is when we come back here. So. But that's a lot less frequent too right now, so there's less frequent.
On the bills, does Peregrine communicate with Tyler?
Really what it is Tyler, when we kind of finalize and post bills, Tyler's will put them all out in a PDF format. And so really then we transfer that to Peregrine in a secure
So that's done through us.
interaction. Yeah, we're doing it all.
Is there any possibility for e-billing?
Yes, we are doing some e-billing. E-billing will be as part of the portal.
Alright,
And that's if people have to sign up for e-bills, which I think, Pat, we even just talked about in our last meeting, that, you know, some of the employees here that have been kind of testing it out and then receiving e-bills and stuff like that. So as we get those email addresses, those will become more available too. So,
put me on the list.
all right,
Me too.
all right.
So this program that we started, I think I was on the committee many years ago.
Yep.
Is worthwhile. It's been
Yeah, we've
worthwhile.
been,
We're actually making
no,
progress.
you know, any transition is always tricky, but I think we're almost through now. We're solely on Tyler, you know, we're not comparing it to other, you know, historical programs and things of that nature, so it's, you know, we're moving forward now. And, you know, efficiencies are there. I think we've seen them in both departments. And a little bit was just a different way in how they process the orders and stuff like that they're service order based rather than address based and things like that, so, which is just been a little bit of a learning curve, but, you know, much easier to generate reports from it, and then there's all these other benefits of, you know, online portal and customer interaction and stuff like that. It's been beneficial, so. You know, I'm hoping eventually that some people, you know, a lot of customers will go to the portal rather than calling us to get, you know, a new bill or consumption, or, you know, that will reduce some of those customer service calls just with that.
Or even when they do call, you can refer them.
Yes, and then send them back and so.
We are clawing into the 21st century as
It
it
is.
relates to technology.
It is, it's crazy, so we're getting there.
You know, well,
Secure,
we
right,
you've
Pat?
jokingly said that, you know, it's
But-
government technology has never, you know, peered well,
Yeah.
you know, so, to get this, I mean, this isn't new technology out there. I mean, the other municipalities have had it, but you've been really good to not only find the of house software that has been most needed, and then to find the appropriate package that will allow us to do the things that we've been wanting to do for a while, so it's good.
It's been good.
It's hard to find the financial software that matches up well with the water sewer
Yes.
software.
But it's tough to find one.
So there's no
Yes.
perfect software out there, I
No.
don't care what anybody says, they all have their own
Yeah.
nuances.
And it's certainly cross-functional, right, in tax,
Yeah,
Tax
well, and,
receiver.
you know, they have multiple modules and so,
Yeah. Right.
cashiering.
I interrupted your general flow.
No, well, that's all right, I think I'm pretty much done.
You said that the May Courier, well, it's through the health department.
Yeah, we got DEC approval, which was our withdrawal permit, which took some time also. And then now, it's really the final design is in front of DOH, New York State DOH, so it's down in Albany for review.
They've been a
Because
little
of
busy.
We
our grants that we have associated with it.
proven that there's enough water and it's good.
Yeah, all that's been vetted, a long time ago, actually. We're producing 800 gallons a minute. It was permitted at 800 gallons a minute. So that's all been good. It's just really when we started up, there's gonna be some startup activities. And part of the design does have a lagoon for discharging too, because the area that we're in is kind of a little bit resident or commercially and kind of, wetlands in that area. And we don't want to inundate people when we start firing up the well, but there'll probably be some cleaning it up since it's been sitting and things like that.
Anticipate it will be operational next year?
I think we'll be in construction next year, whether we'll be fully operational by next year. Just knowing how things go, I'd say no. It's really tough to know how things are gonna go right now, too. But even when they go well, they don't.
That's right.
Thank you, Scott, appreciate it.
So, now I guess if you guys have any specifics, or if you wanna go through each district, or however you wanna handle it.
Just general question,
Yeah.
all the water towers were
Yeah, we've actually completed them all, except for the interior of Champlain Park, or not, Cumberland Head, sorry. No, Bluff Point, sorry.
And so when you said.
So here's a picture, yeah, I hit them
That-
all,
that
I
was
hit them all
way
except for the
off.
one, I hit them all except for the one I wanted. So I got a couple of show and tells here, here's Kimberly tanks all done. Then here's an aerial of all the new 2 million gallon tanks painted.
Oh, look at
You can
that.
see the two old tanks that we
Yes, I
reviewed,
do,
that's what
yeah.
they all look like, so, inside and outside, so then, we've been kind of refurbishing them all. They're all done now, except for the interior of Luff, which we need to kind of do some valving and working with the college there is really one of the reasons that we haven't been able to get fully inside Bluff because of a valving issue outside.
So when you said you're gonna move toward, the budget for maintenance is gonna go up.
Yep.
All the covering, the outside, the painting, all that
Yep.
would need to be done now.
Yeah, and like for example, some of the ones that we started initially, Champlain Park, that's now done its 3-year, large investment, and now it's gone into maintenance mode.
That's
so-
3 years?
Oh, yeah.
And Tom, the one thing that I would offer just for the public consumption again, is that when we were laying out the idea of our capital plan, the hallmarks, and Scott often jokes with me about this, because it's that economic development, sustainability, and health and safety. Good day, sir.
There's no early voting here today?
No, it's down at the county. Down at the county building.
The county building?
County building, yeah, it's not a town hall,
Thank you.
not a
You're welcome.
problem.
Have a good day.
So, but, really one of the things that we wanted to do is to take the politics out of water. And what I mean by that is to have the sustainable nature of the operating, so it didn't become this thing back and forth where, 30 years later, we're like, well, we should have put some type of practice in so that we can maintain, our infrastructure. And we even talked about kind of how we would see kind of predictable, modest increases for things rather than walloping people over the head for fee structures in the future too, which,
And that's the plan for the rates.
yes.
That's the
Yeah.
thought process behind the rate.
Right.
Is to make sure that we close that gap and we're able to maintain.
And that was captured in our water capital plan.
Yeah.
We even had those conversations, which is good, and that's why we need to maintain those schedules, because, you know, we've put other practices, you
Kind
know.
of laid out the roadmap.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
follow
Yes.
it.
But to Meg's point, it wasn't done in one sweeping move
Right.
like that. I would not have supported something like that. I understand we've gotta close that gap, but
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no, it's overtime that we're
Yeah.
going after.
And I think the exciting part for me, for you, Scott, and the water committee, the liaison, is that we're now into that preventative maintenance phase, which I think is very important, you know.
No, it's good to have, you know,
Yeah.
you know, when I stand and look at all the three.
We're not
peeling
waiting
down
for
tank
something
painted, it's a,
to
you know,
break down 10 years from now.
good accomplishment.
Got out of building and leave it.
Yeah, right, so I.
Especially considering how long it took us to get traction, to get to this point, to
Right,
even,
exactly.
you know, that, because it was very, tanks were a very challenging program to kind of get under control.
Yes,
10
absolutely.
years later.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, I think it was even before that, with even previous
But
water
Scott,
sewer.
Scott started 10 years ago.
I remember we were
Literally
talking
started
about-
10 years ago.
talking about hiring
Decade in the
somebody.
making, Scott.
So I'm excited, I'm really happy, I'm glad to be able to bring this all through.
No, it's a good accomplishment for the whole team, so,
That's a good visible
as well as you guys.
completeness.
Pat on the back for everybody.
We worked really hard on those tanks.
Meg was out there painting.
Yeah, that roller was.
You thought the Keatingville Beach House looked good.
If
If you just saw the tanks.
That is my plan for everything. I just gotta
Murals on everything?
Yes.
I want to paint the lift station.
She's
Yeah.
already got an idea for the one
I
down
want to
in
have like
Human
water
Plains.
stats on them.
Yep.
Wouldn't that be fun?
We can talk.
And we're off the rails. It wasn't even 9 o'clock. I lost the bet.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna lose that bet all the time.
Were you betting on me though? To do-
Surprisingly, no.
to do-
No, my money was squarely in one spot.
Oh my God.
Though you're close in the direction.
Yeah, it's on that side
You're
of the
too
road.
structured, Chuck, yeah.
All right.
But, I mean, overall, we have a $7.5 million budget, so, you know, it's a pretty good chunk, so. You guys wanna go through,
Any questions on it? I think it's
Parts
easier
of
to just
it?
ask the questions instead of going through it.
Well, I would just jump in and say, Tom, unless you have any specific questions, there aren't any like great increases
no,
in
it very,
there.
if anything, it's a little bit even pared down compared to
Yeah.
last
Yes,
year's.
definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the big differences are really kind of in the debt piece, that have kind of shifted around. You know, we did increase the tank maintenance line item.
More tanks came online.
We are planning for, employees' retirement next year. So we kind of have that transition in here, from, cost, really benefits, cost.
And that's, you know, Scott, that's another thing I applaud you on, is that we often, and to Barb's credit, often ask the question of what is the succession planning looking like? You know, what are we looking to, not do more with less as an ongoing philosophy, but how do we maintain, and also how do we build efficiencies? So I know that you're constantly looking at how do we rework the team, but still address the critical things. So, you know, with the retirement, the plan is not, oh, well, we're gonna get rid of the line either. Because the employees that we have now, our team is pretty lean and mean. So we do need the seats, we do need the employees, we do need the team members. But I'm confident that Scott will find even efficiency within his team still to kind of repurpose some of the work and elevate some of the projects that we've wanted to do for a while.
And we've had that discussion in committee quite often also with the one position that's been left in the budget but was never really filled, and a lot of the discussion was not necessarily about what the needs were today, but what they were gonna be in 3 years, 5 years, or 10
And
years.
some of that is even as our staff get more senior and they have more time to take off, and, you know, we're kind of working through some of the COVID time, it's, you know, to have, you know, you don't wanna have people allowed to use their time, but also, you know, still accomplish the tasks of the department on a daily basis, and sometimes you need staff just to be able to accomplish, people to be able to take their own.
So the skill set that you need in some areas, is it duplicated now with different employees?
We have some cross-training, but, you know, for the most part, people kind of have set tasks. you know, there's some redundancy that, you know, say Patty may handle mostly resident, or commercial customers, and, you know, Barb handles residentials, and so they both know the software real well, but their customer base is kind of different, and they look for different problems and all that kind of different. So there's a little different skill set, but there's a lot of, similarities in some of their jobs also, you know. And even just, you know, whether one individual might handle backflows, one person might handle permits, so we kind of have it broken up. We have, you know, they can all handle each other's stuff also to be able to cover vacations and things like that. So we've kind of done a lot of cross-training, especially with the new software. Everybody kind of had to, you know, kind of get retrained at the new, you know, kind of the standard of coming in, so that was one good thing. We kind of, you know, expose everybody to the same level, kind of, you know, granted, we had to kind of teach ourselves a little bit as we learned our way through it, and kind of had our own subject matter experts kind of come out, but even in our department and areas, so that's been kind of interesting to watch, and, you know, then they kind of work with each other and kind of know what each other's skills and strengths are, so it's, you know, we have a pretty good working team.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Scott,
So you
what
were-
you're
Do
doing.
you mind grabbing Mel for us?
Nope.
The best of luck.
Thank you.
Base water and things like that.
Well, I would,
Do you have any questions,
Yeah,
John?
Yeah, if you have questions, Tom.
No, I just, I didn't know, I mean, we're going base water, water and sewer administration, are we going through any of those?
Did you have
questions
questions?
on
He
this?
said
You
no
have
questions.
I don't know, on this part, I haven't got to the other yet.
Flip away.
Wastewater is underway. Speaking of which, GPS, are they doing any GPS
Yep,
location
yep,
hydrants, because the hydrants are being moved?
Oh, yeah, we're gonna capture all of that.
Eric asked me, so
Yep.
as soon as you have that.
Yeah, well, it sounds like Eric was gonna go out and do his own too, but I told him that we would
Well, then he
capture.
talked to me about it, and said, are they doing it? I go, well, I would assume they are.
Yeah, we're gonna map it all out.
Either
And then that was even, it's funny that Eric and I were talking, because they were in front of emergency services the other day. We were kind of just figuring out shut-offs and new stuff and old stuff and gas lines and all that fun stuff out in front, and,
remember good.
Okay.
gotta go through that. And then later that night, Eric calls me back and he had a whole
Yeah,
bunch more
it's
questions.
that
that he
other
went-
one.
Yeah, but they have the GPS, that way
Yeah.
the cats.
Yeah, well, he
can be-
originally got the ones that we got from us too, that are in,
Yeah. Yeah, because that, you know,
iron responding,
oh yeah, that all goes in, oh yeah, that all goes in the system, so that comes up on the.
Oh, and that's one of our concerns too, is that we kind of abandoned the old stuff so that, you know, you don't have valve, you know, two valve boxes sitting next to each other. The old one will be kind of, you know, severed to low grade and not an option.
Should work.
Well, they're running in and it's spinning.
You want the other side of it?
Those are from,
Oh, okay.
and that's, was a pretty interesting, shoring system that they brought in. It's a slide rail trench system.
Versus usually it's like a
Yeah.
prefab with a
Yep.
couple of
Exactly.
things on the end that you
Yep.
drop in, right? So what do you do, pound the corners in and then
Yep.
slide it in?
Yep, four corners get pounded in,
Okay.
and then they slide all
Michael.
four sides down. They're almost like double hung windows that kind
Can't
of come
change
down
it.
and
Wow.
go into there. So.
Yeah, I
You good, Tom, or you have any?
No, I just thought what we had.
You're in great shape.
Alright.
You know,
And if you have questions after you go through, by all means, you can.
I just have to ask,
Just
right,
like it's-
I've never seen it, I've never.
Yeah,
no,
no,
it's,
Yeah.
We talked about
when
it,
we
it's
Yeah.
on that front,
Yeah,
it's
it's
on
not-
that
it's
front
not-
page.
now I feel like, wow, we're accomplished. You know, you've done such a great job doing it, and
No.
I really appreciate that. And
So,
even though
All
I'm
right.
not in the committee,
Yeah,
I
no,
try to
absolutely.
keep track of what's going on, but I haven't been around lately to just talk.
Yeah,
because
well, if you want to catch up, though, we're around. You can go for a window tour on some of this stuff.
I have to be a little bit afraid of.
Thank you, Scott.
you can grab it on Mel.
No, yep.
Thank you.
You could take a pickup, put them in the chair.
Be like a automobile. Great day.
Thanks, Scott, you
Thank
too.
you.
So we're working on that budget for next year, right?
I'm gonna, as soon as I leave.
Page nine, right?
tomorrow casual dress or what?
We're doing dress uniform.
Okay, so I'll put on the tux then. I'll put the tux on.
There's no ribbon to cut, okay?
Well, no, there's,
Sorry. It's gonna be a little different, we're not gonna.
you told me that you're gonna do the coupling or uncoupling. I think that's great.
Yeah, we're doing dress uniform, but.
Morning,
Somebody,
Mel.
somebody sneezed.
No, he sprayed
No,
it.
no,
They
no,
sprayed
no.
down for you.
Hang on, man.
It's
That's
the
okay.
quad.
He sanitized it.
You can,
That is nasty.
you can stand.
Oh, there's donuts behind you, Mel.
I see that. I'm trying to be, oh no,
You want a different chair?
what did you do?
I can do it, but
Listen, I gotta go places today, I can't be all yucky. So are we ready? Yeah? Everybody's here?
Well,
Tom's Rogue and Meg will be back momentarily.
Alright.
How you doing, Mel? Good morning.
Great,
Hey, we're ahead of schedule now.
so, I know, that's good, I have a haircut at 9:30, so we gotta-
Another one, yeah, we have a
gotta
couple.
Get her moving.
Gotcha.
Excellent, so do we start or are we waiting for those guys?
We're gonna wait for a
Oh.
moment.
Alright, and the sun is coming out, just in case you didn't notice.
Which is good.
Mel.
If they say-
I feel the heat from that sun.
Yeah, I got a funny story for you too.
Do ya? Shoot.
So, we're up this morning having our coffee and our dog is getting a little wound up this morning.
Little
Trying to
Ellie,
jump-
no.
Trying to jump up in the chair with my wife, so I told her, go get in your bed. She gets down, gives me a little look, walks over, gets one of my shoes and brings over and puts it in her bed, and then hops up on the chair.
I love it. I love that dog.
What kind of dog is it?
It's a Chihuahua Feist.
Oh,
She's just
15-pound dog.
spunk.
Yeah, she's pretty funny.
Oh my, that is such attitude right there. I love that.
Of course, my wife thought it was hilarious.
Olivia's father, they had Pomeranians, they've had all kinds of dogs, and one would be passive aggressive, that it would poop in his shoes.
Oh,
If he was gone for a couple of days, like if he had,
Yeah.
like,
They are so smart.
yeah.
they are smart.
they are smart.
Wicked.
Yeah, I guess ours.
Yep.
Is that Tom out in the hallway?
I will find out, I'm pretty good.
I think it's,
I'll be right back.
I thought it was Steve out
yeah,
there.
Steve said.
Oh, there they are, they're
Oh,
coming in,
oh,
they're
okay.
coming in.
Oh, thanks. Good family.
All right. Well, good morning, Mel. First and foremost, I just want to thank you and Erin for all the good work that you've been doing lately. I think soccer is just one good example of you taking stuff in stride and working with our remarkable coaches and kids. You know, we've said a number of times that we miss having the kids come in and do their certificate ceremonies and stuff,
Put
so.
them in the mail yesterday. Did you?
So,
Yep.
so thank you for all that. And also thank you and Meg and Chuck and Erin for, you know, the new rec committee. We look forward to seeing where that kind of goes forward. So, toss it over to you.
Good. Anybody have any questions about it, about my budget? I would rather go that way rather than,
I'm just gonna throw a couple things in there, just,
Okay.
So in the budget, we did put, some funds in for the finishing the pickleball court that got started last year. We are taking some funds out of, the subdivision fees that Mel gets for that, the town gets, not the person, but,
Park.
the parkland fund, so we're taking 5,000 out of that, so you'll see there is that added to the revenues, and that's gonna help offset some of the cost on the pickleball court, so. I just wanna let people know that, what that line item was for, so.
And I think it's a good demonstration of, you know, outdoor activities or something that are,
absolutely.
Yeah.
you know, obviously, they were important before, but,
Mhm.
you know, more and more people are doing things, so let's continue to make that the
Yep.
priority area.
Last count, there were over 300 people playing regularly in this area, the region. I'll say the region from Rouse's Point all the way down.
You know,
Pickleball's just exploded, and the more opportunities we can give those folks, places to play, because they can't play indoor anymore, at least for now. We just have to make that happen. Start the project, we should get her done.
and the trail counter numbers
Yep.
this year have just been,
Yep, trail numbers are up, disc golf numbers are probably about the same, but I think that, you know, with a couple months without anybody on there,
Yeah.
and a lot of people, things are good. The outdoor stuff is very busy. everything's,
Right.
yeah. Yep, good stuff. I will say, as is the plan, and you all know, the beach will be used as a public waterfront again next year. That went very well this year, very smoothly. People were fishing from the side that couldn't fish from the side before because it was beach. So it gives them better access, you know, without having to go out in a boat to fish from a safe place. Boat launch, you know, was used as regular. It was very, very good. There were a few people in the water. I'm not gonna say, you know, there wasn't. There absolutely was. It was a hot summer. But for the most part, people, when they went in the water, were wading. They weren't swimming. They'd go in, they'd stand there to their waist, just stand there. To me, that's a whole different thing. That's not a swimming, that's a wading. But there were a couple that swam. I had to go out a couple times and say, hey, you're not supposed to be swimming, and see the signs right here, and, you know. But generally, people are really, really good this year. Very, very good.
That's great.
Yep. So other than that, does anybody have anything, questions about anywhere in there?
Just one other thing I want to add too. So for the 2020 budget, Mel had for a new vehicle in there, a van. So that's not happening this year. She agreed not to have it happen next year unless, you know, that's another one of those items that if the funds come in, we'll see if we can do it. So I'm gonna assume that would be in the 2022
Yep.
budget once again. So just so when you see those fluctuations, you know what's going on. It's
Yeah.
just an outlier or something.
Yep.
We'd like to know what's going on with the revenue too, but it's not gonna happen for a while.
Well, the revenue, you should see a lot of drops on our side because of the
Yeah.
senior trips for one. I mean,
Right.
that was,
The rentals.
the rentals are half as much,
Yeah.
because we're only allowing one a weekend, so that cuts that down quite a bit. But, you know, it is what it is. There's a lot less expenses too, I mean, it kind of,
It does help.
But people,
Wash
you
it
know,
out.
it's been nice though that people have been working with us and understand even the limitations and, you know, when you had to make some phone calls about canceling spaces early on. I mean, I know nobody was happy, but, I would say fair to most,
Mhm.
people were very respectful and understanding.
yep, they were very good. That was a couple of months of phone calls,
You know,
actually.
yeah, because we kept kinda,
Yeah,
we tried to be as accommodating as possible and, you know, allow people, so.
no,
We may see an uptick next year just because everybody, there was a lot of postponements this year. I know I had 3 or 4 weddings to go this year and they're all postponed until next year.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so we may, hopefully, you know, we get back to some kind of normalcy. We'll see an uptick.
And Mel, even some of the parks, Maker in particular, was used for like social distancing visit.
Yep.
People have in their cars.
Yep,
I did that myself with some friends and some peers where we just sat there socially distant but could visit.
Yep.
I've seen that up there, so.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting what people have figured out to make things happen. You know, you have to see each other and stuff.
So the buildings aren't being used then?
They are being used.
They are?
We're allowing one group in per day, so for example, at May Courier, Erin goes in the morning to do her fitness class. There's no one else in there the rest of the day or evening. If we have a group on a Tuesday night that's using it, like our metal detector club, then there's nobody else in there that day. So there are groups in there. Actually, almost every day, there's at least one group at May Courier.
The reason that we're using that format right now, Tom, is with the additional cleaning protocol that we have with COVID-19, our building and grounds department can't do a triple loop with all the additional buildings, so that we can make sure to put things in the appropriate schedule to con the space appropriately and then give enough, you know, kind of settling time.
We've also placed out quat bottles
Yep.
at the buildings with a big sign that says, you know, please, as you leave, please spray down anything you've touched, tables and chairs, mostly. Things like that. It's been working quite well.
How many people are allowed in the building?
They're allowed, I don't actually go in and count people, so the building capacity is what it is. Most people are only going in with 10 or less people. I know the groups are keeping it to 10 or less, just because of the size of the building, but like if there's someone renting it on a Saturday, I'm not going in to see how many people they have. They can't hold more than 50, so I'm pretty confident of that. You know, none of our buildings are that big, and 50 is the group size, so. Yeah.
Just, I'm worried about that as we go through the winter, that, you know, this is where the real spreading begins of the COVID. If somebody's infected and there's a good number of people in the confined space inside.
And Tom, you know, Mel was really, really good at, when we got into the reopening phase of doing signage in the parks, and, you know, as the Clinton County Health Department and New York Health Department and CDC, you know, all the various agencies that we're kind of getting our information from, I very much imagine, like we have even in this space right now with our signage, that we'll continue to change signage based upon trends and attitudes, or not attitudes, but the information that comes before us.
Yeah,
So,
and not even way beyond signs, Mel and Aaron have just been like adapting their programs on a dime, switching what they thought they were gonna do and getting new programs in overnight.
And they split up group size when you're doing the kayaking, they split the groups up so that it's not 20 people together, same when they do their hikes. You've increased kayaking, increased hikes, they're increasing, because it looks like basketball probably isn't gonna happen, so they're gonna increase the winter activities, you know, snowshoeing and cross-country skiing outside, so.
Don't throw mild winter.
Yeah, well, no, we wanna have ice rinks
Cold
too,
enough to
though,
freeze
because.
the ice,
That's it, I'm talking 25 to 30 degrees would be
Yeah.
beautiful.
sunny every day.
20
Just
below
have-
is just not,
Just
yeah.
have it cold at night though, so
We
the
need-
ice
we need to
freezes
have
on the
that.
ice rinks, don't forget that.
You know,
we
I
need to add Tom Mesner onto that rec committee.
Oh, God, no, that would be my first choice, unfortunately.
He's
Most of-
watching.
Any other questions? I'm just trying to keep this on.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
No, I'm all set. Thank you, Mel, really.
Okay,
Aaron,
very
Do
please.
you
good.
mind, having tell Trevor to come on down and
No,
tell
right out here.
Steve
Very
to be
good.
in queue?
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Page 11.
Did you say Trevor?
Patrick is.
Trevor,
Trevor,
Is he there?
Trevor's not here to see this.
okay, come on down.
come on down.
I think Trevor is the new Steve. Steve's the new Trevor. Go, keep going.
Get in here, Imhoff.
I'm in.
He's been here for a while.
Yeah.
He's been ready.
Well, I heard come early.
Yeah, he did.
Come early, stay
Good
late.
morning, Steve.
Good morning.
There's donuts behind you for you.
Blame it on Scott, by the way.
Yeah, he won't shut up.
You know, I'm the water director.
Oh, I just want to let you know, Mr. Correll was in the building yesterday.
No way.
Yeah, and he's looking for you.
Oh my goodness.
He's got a little chat about the high peaks with you,
Perfect.
Was he eating a hot dog?
Phil?
so. I know, I almost fell out of my chair when you came in.
He was walking around eating.
He was looking for candy jars.
Yeah.
How did I miss him? I've been looking for him. Oh, that's the best.
All right,
All right, so how,
Page 10.
Where are we now?
Page
page
10.
10.
we're in codes and zoning.
Steve, just, you know, annually, this is kind of our opportunity to give thanks. And, you know, you and your team in particular this year, I want to give a lot of thanks to. You know, through COVID-19, your department has taken on some of that additional responsibility to go around and make sure people have had that, you know, the social distancing signage up and the enforcement and the New York State pause. So please carry that message back to your team, from myself and on behalf of the council. And you folks have been doing a great job with that. So
Thank you.
in addition to the day-to-day, your activities in your office have not slowed down.
You, and we actually just put out, yesterday, our letters went out for Black Friday stuff with, 46 days to go to that. To see all the businesses, what their Black Friday plans are, how they're gonna be COVID compliant with trying to do Black Friday stuff. So this should be interesting to see what their plans are from corporate all the way from the mall. We're working with mall and with Ryan Davies with the health department. We'll get their plans, showing how they're doing it, where they're doing it, making sure their stations are, how many people they plan, what their stations are, or like if it's a TV, if it's this or that. So that'll be an interesting, we're gonna give them 25 days to respond back to us, review it, hit it with the health department. So it'll be interesting to see how that, obviously with the town of Plattsburgh, how Target's gonna deal different than Walmart, or even if they're even gonna do it. We don't even know if they're gonna.
But being proactive, though, I think is the important part of it, because, you know, beginning to have these conversations is, yes, it's very likely that they aren't gonna do this, but, you know, we don't wanna be, you know, trying to corral this information at the last minute, so. All right, anything anything that you wanna cover in particular? I know that, you know, like everybody's budget, it's been lean and mean this year. We've had the conversation about, if more sales tax come in, that we will, you know, look and evaluate some of the additional priorities in the future.
No, mine is, bare bones, everything went down to bare, I mean, this is, you asked to be slim and sleek, and this is what we did. I mean, it went down to, from gas to even to our fuel, to the cell phones, everything went down. The one thing that went up was our revenues for the building permit applications for, you'll see, we're probably in the six figures right now, trying to get that numbers up. Our letter of compliances, for all the businesses that have been sold and bought, that went up. So hopefully that helps into the coffers of the town, getting that number up. The only other thing is, I think that Tim and Greg are discussing, maybe they're still looking at taking one of our vehicles into theirs. That was still up for discussion, but that was obviously coming out of some of their budget as an internal one. That was the only expenditure, but only if it was, monies were freed up with the highway department to try to take one of their older, shouldn't even be on the road. I'm sure you heard the same story with the frame rotted out on one of their red utility trucks, taking one of our older ones, putting it into their fleet. That was the only expenditure that we were looking at that was out of, line for what we were looking at. Besides that, doesn't get much slimmer than this.
The other thing that I would also share, and it's worth mentioning because it's gonna cascade over to a bunch of different departments, you just happen to be the first one up, Steve. Pictometry, we're up for pictometry, and that's something, actually, we could have said it for highway too, but that's something that gets shared across all the different departments. And that's been a really, really good item for people to have.
It's almost like.
And that's in the budget.
Yeah.
We're doing
Yes.
a new flyover next
Yeah,
year.
but that's what I'm saying, is it's reflective in each of those.
It's, pictometry is like almost for Brian more than us, but it's, I shouldn't say that. His more, he can get more data entry to get,
Sure.
more stuff, but we can literally look at people and say, well, you just built this last year, look, we can compare it, and we go into, it's phenomenal, so, highly suggest that, thanks for supporting us on getting another flyover. Is it every 3 years?
Yeah,
Yes.
3 years, okay. That's,
and they do a 3-year contract, so we do 10 years. I think it's like $11,000 each year that we'll be doing, so total $33,000. We still haven't been able to get the county to join in on
I
that.
know, I'm just gonna ask that question.
I've had numerous conversations, and then we were close, and then
Gotta keep at it.
with COVID, you know, there just was not a,
they want it, they don't wanna pay for it.
Yeah,
But and Steve, the resolution's getting better and better each time.
Yeah, it is.
Upgraded version, I've noticed that.
For us, I mean, if we don't use it 30, 40 times a week at least, during daily, the whole day, let's look at this, let's do the zoning overlays, and now the
Right.
data files that we put on top of it.
and it's great even when we're talking with prospective businesses, because people are looking at, I mean, it's not just, you know, the single use, I mean, there's so many different opportunities for it, so.
We used it on, with a developer that's looking on the Ruger Street development, is that Tuesday or Wednesday? They're like, how did you get that? Like, we did overlays for him, for their development, the whole deal, and it was way better resolution than Google Earth by far. So yes, if you guys got any questions for me, it's just.
Pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Madison.
I did want to know, you know, in terms of not having to go around and checking, you know, are people distancing and whatever and all this commercial facilities and stores and this, how do you do that? Are you doing it kind of a day or?
No, they're called New York State pause complaints. So Michael and myself get, at the beginning, I mean, it goes, I would say, oh my God, we only got like 8 of them this weekend. So it goes to New York State pause complaints. If you were in Target and you saw 9 people without masks, you can go online saying this was the time, this is the date, this is what I saw. We get it, or we would get direct, but the pause complaints would go from Emergency Management Services, Eric Day, down to us. And some of them would go to the health department, depending on what the complaints are. We would get them, Alan, myself, or Drew, depending on the time and dates. We'd go there, talk to the manager. We've got good rapport with all the managers of the bigger box stores, all the way down to the other ones with our inspection to say, hey, this is the report we got, what are you guys doing? Whether it was masks, whether it was no social distancing, whether it was too crowded at the restaurants, the whole deal, the guards weren't up. We get so many different complaints, so then we would respond to there. Just unfortunately, some of them we can't respond for something that happened 3 days ago. By the time it would hit the system, go off air.
Well, that's what I'm gonna say, you can't
Yeah,
possibly
and
get
they're
there
all
when you're.
anonymous,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, some people will put their names on it. They'll say, hey, contact me, I wanna know what you did. Very few. And then it turns into, as Michael knows, moms were turning it in for their kids that worked at Schluter. You know, it was some of the weirdest, they're like, just what? So, and Schluter was one of the best ones. They bought gallons of the stuff.
But one of the things that I was referring to at the very beginning though, we reached out to, I mean, I can't even think, countless almost, businesses, giving them the materials that was coming down through the state, because it was so hard to get information out. I mean, Donna was sending out emails to people, we were calling people, directing them to, you know, or if there was like that weird kind of situation that nobody knew, like, well, what category do we fall in? Steve and his crew was calling ESD to get, you know, clarifying information. So we were really trying to work within that middle zone, and then also the restaurants this year, you know, we made accommodations to allow for restaurants to do outdoor dining in ways that they never did before. So that's what I say, Steve. I mean, just kudos to you and your crew for just kind of taking it on the chin and just, you know, hunkering down like you always do to get it done. So thank you.
While still doing the other things you need to do, fire
Yeah.
inspection, right?
And going to the Macon Motel.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
I'd like
The city motel.
I'd like to say, really appreciate all the extra work you did with all the zoning that came from the Smart Growth Plan, and you had to spend so much time, and you couldn't do it in person, but you went through every line. And I really appreciate your dedication to that, because I think it's one of the most important things that we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's gonna come out better. We've never had a perfect zoning ordinance, but, between our crews and even with Trevor, going line by line, whereas, is, ofs, the whole thing to try to get that ordinance better. It's gonna be, I'm lying to you if I say it's gonna be difficult to do public hearings, so this next step, working with Shazen, of trying to get public feedback, and then try to get it in this room before, that you went through the process twice now. We used to have 30, 40 people in there. That's gonna be, we can't do that.
When we get to that stage, we're gonna be very methodical and making sure that we have, you know, multiple opportunities to, you know, we're not gonna do this, bare minimum. We're always going to, you know, far exceed the opportunities to make sure.
So many could come one day and so many could come another day or something?
And we'll probably, I don't wanna get off track because we're on the budget right now, but grab Trevor and, but yes, we will be working.
We will
on
be.
it.
You know, I'm just really,
We'll be adjusted.
that's such a good program.
It is, thank
I hope we have that, you know, in effect, that's all.
Thanks, Steve.
And pencil in the rewrite of the junkyard law, too, because we discussed that at the board meeting Thursday.
Yes, you mean update it.
Yeah,
Yes,
that needs to be updated.
2000s?
How to work
It's
those.
36 years old. Michael said he's younger than the law, but.
Well,
No, the law is younger than me, which is a shocking
Oh,
thing here.
okay. I'm saying, I couldn't
Not,
remember
not by much.
which way it was.
now Meg never uses
Steve,
that
thanks a lot.
Bible, so
Thanks. Really
she
do.
just goes with
Thanks,
it.
Steve.
Whippersnapper.
Yeah, bye, Steve.
Trevor, what did the barber say?
Problem.
No, I think Brian's up there.
We're all stacking up. Good.
Good morning.
Every minute that Trevor is late, we cut your budget by.
Yeah.
Down to 95 cents.
Less donuts to take home to the kids, too.
Good morning, how's
Good
everybody
morning,
doing?
Trevor.
Good morning.
Yourself.
Trevor, just before we get into your budget,
Okay.
I wanna, thank you and your crew, for just continuously addressing the wide swath of, things that come before your group. And, you know, we were talking about, you and I, that the town needs to continue to be open for business even during the pandemic. And right now, if you drive around, that there are a number of projects that are, got, you know, shovels in the ground, construction, you know, building, so on and so forth. And that's because of you and your team working, through things to make sure that we have planning boards still on track and using Zoom and stuff, so thank you to you and your crew. And then also, we've said it, and I don't wanna get on a soapbox and to get into the weeds on this, but I do wanna publicly thank you again, for all of your work as it relates to the annexation. You know, the town board continues to evaluate a number of things, and, just thank you on that, so we'll get ready to your budget, so.
I'm all ears if you have anything you in particular you wanna ask about. I can give a general philosophy of how we approach budget this year.
That'd be good.
As you're well aware, our approach to budgeting is zero-based budgeting, so as usual, Michelle and I typically get together, look at previous year's expenditures, everything from our BAS annual subscriptions, membership subscriptions, to what we've spent on rolls of printer paper, all the way down to previous expenditures for larger items like grants, smart growth plans, reimbursable grants, Department of State, waterfront grants, etc. And start from there, move forward. So we looked at our typical expenditures, and they were pretty close to last year. And given that we, budget in advance, we still have, 3 months in the end that we gotta consider. So not much changed, but it's COVID year, so we really needed to look at where we could pull back on certain expenditures. The only room that I felt our department had much latitude to pull back on were really our how we defined it here, our community development line item in planning, implementation, and studies. We didn't want to zero that out because, as the supervisor said, we want to remain open for business, and some of this really requires us still implementing studies, doing small projects that set us up for the next phase. So the biggest items that we reduced were our community development line item from 25,000 to 5, and planning, implementation, and studies from 25,000 to 10. That remained higher than community development, as much as we obviously really enjoy that line item of community development, which could be anything from unlock the parks type initiatives and some of that stuff that's more the softer community development stuff. The comprehensive planning side of that, really, Mr. Cashman and I even discussed already some grants that we're looking for that need minor match. I mean, we're talking $2,500 to get $10,000 or $5,000 really unlocks a lot more opportunity for us, so we really wanted to keep that line item there. Aside from that, much of our budget stayed pretty much the same because we know we're still going to have the same dollar amount to send out mailings for meetings. That's not going to change. Maps, certain plans we have to have printed, it's really going to remain much the same regardless because the number of projects per month hasn't changed during the pandemic. We've still been having the same output. So the cost of business alone has remained pretty flat.
What's
Any
the
questions?
status of the DASME grants?
We had been informed by DASNY that there was it's not an executive order, it's I forget the exact term they used, it's separate from the executive order, basically a proclamation that was issued stating that all reimbursements are on hold. So they didn't declare that they will never reimburse, but I followed up because we had been working on the Battlefields Memorial Gateway project, and there were some more opportunities opening for that. We had finalized grant number 9514, I believe, and we're moving on to 15829. But before we proceeded with that, because I still have to complete that contract with DASNY, rather than complete that, I asked for kind of some clarity. If I complete this contract and we proceed with the project, is it at risk? Are we actually going to be reimbursed? And they were pretty clear. You would be proceeding at risk at this time. We can't give you any more information about when you might be reimbursed. So we didn't proceed with finalizing that contract. It's still ours. We can still finalize it, but it didn't seem like a good idea to finalize the contract and move forward with something that's reimbursable without clarity that we will be reimbursed. There's obviously clawbacks from New York State in many different grant avenues. That's one of them. Yeah. The Department of State stuff is in a similar case, although we've been still receiving Department of State reimbursements.
There's a couple other opportunities that are on the horizon in that area that there's money in pocket, so which is.
As far far as that same project out with Memorial Gateway, we have been the recipient of 2016 waterfront revitalization funds through the Regional Waterfront Revitalization Committee that is administered by Melissa McManus through Clinton County to do an additional study for phase 2 implementation of the battlefields. I believe we're looking at about $50,000 to do a study for that we've already demonstrated the match for. So you won't see that match item in the budget because we've already expended that in previous years by doing surveys of the site and implementing other grants. So there's still other avenues we can pursue that aren't state reimbursable grants, which is again why we wanted to leave at least $10,000 in the studies portion so that we can provide a match for those non-state grants, try to leverage some of those things that aren't clawed back.
It's all the extra work that you've done, so, as far as I'm concerned, fantastic work on the annexation, and the papers that you've written out there, the presentation that you made. I just really appreciate all that. I think it's been great cover. You've done a wonderful job. And I'm wondering, is there other money in the budget for future possible litigation?
Yeah, we'll get into some of those other areas, but we always make sure to account for litigation as it arises, so.
Trevor, I want to thank you for always being broad-minded about requests for proposals and understanding that I think we're trying to be supportive of looking at different types of vendors or individuals, consultants, whatever. Because sometimes some things in your area are somewhat project-specific. So, you don't take for granted that one particular consultant can do something that leads to that next situation.
Barb, in fact, Michelle will be launching an RFP for the Hometown Heroes banner.
Oh, okay.
So when we first jump-started that program, we wanted to use a vendor that had been in the arena for a while to make sure, but we had promised, because there are other vendors in the area, of course, the opportunity that we would put a formal RFP, and that will be coming out in a couple of weeks or so. So, every opportunity to really be out in front and transparent and connect with community opportunities and stuff like that.
I've tried to explain that too with some of our consultants that we find ourselves using more consistently, to explain to them, this isn't just about, driving that dollar amount down to the bare bottom, but, we look for different forms of creativity too. I mean, so it's best value in an appropriate range, but also concepts, ideas, even with something as small as the banners. We may be sourcing it one way and the price might seem nice, but somebody says, the next one says, we actually have this other rubber coated one that's shown the last 3 years. Well, that'd be great, we didn't know about that. So there's a lot of reasons to do an RFP and try to solicit as many responses as possible, from banners to consultants.
But that's a lot of the soft, a lot of the, often seems as soft work, but it's a lot of work to develop the RFPs, and then when you get the respondents too. I mean, if you get 5 different, people to respond, to be able to kind of compare them and understand what needs to be done.
And I do this, probably this upcoming week, need to review our contracts with our 5 engineering consultants that we have. I get a 2-year term with them, so I'll need to review that, and we may be issuing another RFP to also do that. And maybe we don't get 5 again, maybe we get 2, but we're also open to that. If maybe not all 5 are keep a contract.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Going once, going twice, sold. Do you mind sending Brian in?
Sure.
Thanks.
Everyone have a good weekend.
Thanks, Trevor.
Good day.
Yes.
So far. Ciao.
Bye.
Chuck and I were in here the other night after our meeting, and a mouse came in.
Oh.
Like the time that the bird came in, so we've had a bird in here, we've got a mouse in here.
I don't know if the mouse went out like the bird did.
No, I don't think the mouse went out.
No,
They're
well,
just
You went to the
different
snack
constituents.
He went in behind the bifold door.
It's like, oh, Doritos, actually.
I was gonna finish him off, but
Glad it wasn't here.
Meg seemed distraught
Well,
over
hi,
that.
Rick.
How are you? Wait, the bag out there?
whoa.
Huh?
We got
Brian?
Brian. Where's Brian?
Okay.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
all right.
Again, Rick. You're
showed me in.
the
All right.
All right, so
6.
let's start with street lighting first. That's its own separate package.
Yeah, right.
just walked in.
Yeah, but you're already in.
You're
Yeah,
already
you're in
here.
the seat
You're
now.
in the seat now.
That's right.
Lock and load. All right.
Man with all the personality has arrived.
So we're gonna keep on task here, so.
Yes.
So, real property taxes have gone down, due to the decreases in expenditures for the budget. Normally what we do on, the street lighting budget, we have built in, a little extra for reserve for purchasing a new truck down the road. You're not able to establish a street light reserve for GML law, which makes no sense, but, so that was reduced down a little bit, and that has an effect on the real property taxes. Otherwise than that, there's, not a lot of huge, changes in this. Any questions on this one?
My question is just, thanks, Rick, for you and your team for always being responsive.
We love our jobs here, and we appreciate it. And the board works well with us, and Michael has really worked well with us this year.
Well, Rick, and I didn't have a chance to do it, and I'll do it now, is, you and your team in particular have really stepped forward with COVID, responding to a wide variety of needs. You're doing your regular jobs, but just managing the additional cleaning, and the projects, and making sure that you're doing it in a safe manner and stuff. And it's not just Tony, but, the guys have been supporting her, and she's, set, I think, a very high standard too, so thank you for all that. And, you in particular, Rick, you've got many, many, many talents, and all people have to do is go up to Katie'ville to see what you did with the sign. It seems like a small thing, but that was a project that I think a bunch of Boy Scouts did originally, right?
Yeah.
And, those are just some of those legacy things, and they need attention, and we just appreciate that you were able to go in there and address things in a very cost-effective manner. Same thing with all the barn doors that you did for the office spaces here for COVID. I mean, we were able to put safety protocols in here because you have talents, that, we would have had to have contracted out if we didn't have you, so thank you.
The pavilion
Appreciate
at Katie'ville too.
Yeah.
You pull in and then you keep going, there's Rick's handiwork from one end to the other.
Yeah.
And I think especially what you did when you're in the 50% reduction in
Yeah,
manpower.
we have to
Yeah.
look at that.
I mean, people talk about that, but the bigger departments,
Yep.
that isn't as tough a haul as it is for you guys.
Yeah.
When you folks are down to 50%, that only leaves, 2.5 working at one time.
Yeah.
So, that's a tough one, and you were still able to keep up with that, so.
And just the walk-up
Thank you.
window to the tax receiver's office,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
has
everything.
gotten
Yeah.
a lot of feedback.
During that time period, it's amazing what you folks got done, it really is.
You should go celebrate and have some KFC.
Well, it's a joint effort, I mean.
Have it done.
To keep everybody's attitude's been really good as of late, so it's, I have that.
All right.
Okay, page 6,
Okay.
general fund, is buildings and grounds.
Mhm.
No significant changes to this one here. The only really one was the improvements, we dropped down by $20,000.
Yeah.
Is the park field, maintenance, is that just our regular thing, or are we going ahead with fixing, like, Cumberland Head or anything? Do we know?
As far as the drainage, I thought we were waiting on the
Yeah,
company.
we're not doing any drainage out there.
Not
Yeah.
yet.
And there's no funds in the budget for any new implementations out of Cumberland Head at this
Yeah.
point.
Well, I see that the park field maintenance is off, and I just wanted to.
That is for the pickleball court.
Yeah, the complete over in, Tribal.
Yeah. And also, Rick, I would thank you on behalf of all the unionists as well for your unanimous vote to forego the pay increase next year. I mean, that really, we really appreciated that. I mean, that meant a lot. Obviously, as we get into next year, we'll, evaluate, opportunities, but, just to be able to do some predictive budgeting, was a really powerful statement. And I know that you had a lot of conversations with the
Thank you very much.
All right,
Any other questions?
that's it.
Grab Brian, will you? Thanks, Rick.
Uh-oh.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Rick, there's
Well,
a
that
big
was
spider
quick.
on Pinewood Drive, by the way.
Huh?
There's a big spider on Pinewood Drive, right
I
across
still
from
owe
the-
you one.
Right from across from the lights, so.
All right.
I owe you and you. But where are you?
If Brian's not there,
I'll go right to his house and get him.
Kevin can come in, but,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Patrick, on the street lighting, the pole attachment fee, that's from eyesight?
That's nice, like,
We have
the rate,
no
the rate
control
went up,
over that?
but we don't have any
It's just
control.
gonna keep going up every year?
Well, they haven't raised it in 4 years, and then this is an incremental increase on it. And we called them about it, and we tried to get a hold of somebody, and, we were 2 months into it, and we can't really get anybody. to give us
Really?
You blocked the.
Oh, Ryan?
Signing the
Okay, thanks,
ordinance.
thanks, Rick.
Still trying to figure out some information.
With lines.
Very successful.
We are trying to get a hold of them. Every month,
difficult.
it's a tickler, or we call them, and we get pushed from one person to another, so.
Who have you talked to?
I have, Karen is the one that's calling them, so
Okay.
I would have to find out.
The next one's right here.
No, he's here.
These are-
He's here.
Stay put, Tom.
Or don't?
Oh, don't.
You need one of those kin harness that you have when you bring kids to Disney.
Shotgun.
I was trying to be a little bit more humane with
Well, that's
that.
gonna say, yeah.
Come back.
Is Kevin out there? I'll pull some.
No, they said Brian, I'll go. He's getting stuff. Have a donut, Tom. No? I'm surprised at you.
Barb's already agreed that whatever donuts are left, she's gonna eat all of them before she can leave town hall.
Is that right?
Wow. Hate to do all that talking at all.
Before you go have pizza.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I only have pizza every 6 weeks. That
Really?
is torture.
You're on schedule?
Yeah.
Okay, that's like a very specific amount of time.
How did you calculate?
Because I'm motivated, yeah, I know, is that
Every
something?
6
I worked with Pat on that.
I have pizza every 6 days.
All right.
Mr. Downs.
Good morning.
Good
Brian.
morning.
Thanks for coming in.
Oh, yeah.
Brian, before we
I
get
tried to
started,
get Rachel to show up.
I just wanna, thank you on behalf of, the team for all your work over the last year. You know, just your continuation and, you know, as we were saying before, a lot of departments, every department has been challenged obviously with COVID-19. Your office was challenged with, you know, some staffing reduction for a period of time and then, also during the grievance process to have to facilitate a public meeting, to the best of the abilities and stuff. So just, we wanna thank you for all that.
Yeah.
All right.
Lessons learned along the way.
Yep. So,
We all do.
all right, we'll get right into it. Is there anything in
So
particular?
Brian, we did touch on pictometry already, how that's in the budget, and
Okay,
Just-
just to recap, I just sent I scanned it and said, no, there's a $2,499 charge there, so it's like, no, take that out. We're not gonna go do training at Future whatever someplace, you know, so they put in, hotel rooms and training things for us into.
Let me know how to use them.
So I have him modifying that, and also the number of tiles he's doing is 80, which includes all of the city. So I sent a message saying, well, you know, we're not interested in sharing this information with any other entities. And he says, well, they're gonna get back to my legal team about that. And I'm like, well, we went through this 3 years ago, so talk to your legal team, but I'll talk to the CEO if we have to. The last time the guy reached out, never back to that point, they solved it. So, same thing here, I expect that we'll get, our flyover and our imagery is to be shared, but it wouldn't be shared by anybody in Clinton County. resolutions we have never seen, never. They didn't offer, you know, when we started, you had a 6-inch resolution, you had a 4-inch resolution and a 3-inch. And 2015, when we first did it, we managed to get a 3-inch. 2018, the sales department